when I was back in England in the summer, when George was about in Trinidad, I had to get back because my mum was in a bad way. And at that point, things were happening on the electric side with the batteries and the system. So I wasn't actually there to see it all happening. So suddenly now, 6, 8 months, a year later, I had a problem. I was installing solar panels, actually, which I did. But I had to understand my electrical system. Mm-hmm. And fortunately for me, some boat friends nearby, who actually run my website now, that's why they're doing it. They were cruiser friends, and I got onto them when I wanted a website. They were helpful in getting me through the electrical side of things, pointing me to places to read up about, lengths of cable runs and voltage drops and all this kind of thing. So that was pretty helpful. So yeah, the other thing that I always say to people when they say, well, however do you manage to deal with everything? There's so much that can go wrong. I said, yeah, but normally it's only one thing at a time that goes wrong. So as you discover maybe that this thing exists on your boat, which I did from time to time, I didn't even know this thing was there. The cause of my problem was this, what's that? So now you find out about it and you read up about it, or you get someone to show you all about it, because boaters help you, Mm-hmm. So as long as when things break, you have the manual. I mean, one thing I've always made sure of, anything new on the boat, I've always made sure I've got the bit of paper that goes with it, explaining how to look after it and repair it or whatever. And that's so important, because you can go back to that. I mean, I've got in the aft cabin, I have a bookshelf full of folders and things. And I can't believe how many folders there are with all the bits of paper to do with the boat. Yeah. Instruments and sails, repairs, engine, anything. I've tried to make sure I've kept it. Because, how else would I, on going up north to Alaska when my engine failed, however could I have possibly replaced an injector with no knowledge at all?
I was just about to raise that. Yes, you wrote, I changed an injector, and I think that's marvellous. And especially an injector of an engine where you have to be so careful to keep everything pristine and clean. Right. So,
but I mean, the funny story there is when I first started, I was actually looking for because I'd come into San Francisco earlier that year, I think, and I got the guy there to explain to me all about the injectors and take me through it all. And he was saying to me, this was a Volvo Penta MD22L engine, and it had, most diesel engines, of course, do have, what they call the thing.
Yeah, it'll come to us in a minute.
Yeah, it will do. So I was looking, he was saying to me that on my engine, it was easier to go for that than it was to go for the injector. And that might have been the problem. So I was busily looking at the manual, okay, here's the heat, whatever it is. So I kind of went for it, pulled it out, and I thought, well, I don't know, this looks really just like a straightforward, ordinary bolt to me with a screw thread on it. Put it back quickly, have another look at the manual and try and see where it was that I was looking for, get that out. That didn't work anyway, because I couldn't get all four of them. I could get to four injectors with difficulty, but I could access them. I don't know what was it, the pipes and things were in the way. Mm-hmm. So I had to go for the injectors in the end, but I always remember pulling this thing out and looking at it and thinking, that doesn't look like anything electric. That is a bolt. Put it back quick. I spent 3 days, I was just drifting around, so it wasn't a problem. I just spent 3 days doing it. There were people on the radio. This was after my single-handed transfac, I'd done the transfac race down to Kauai from San Francisco, which was brilliant. So many good friends, very, very helpful to each other. Anyone had a problem, everyone discussed it and helped them. So on my way back up, we were still on the return, almost like the race again. You still had the radio contact, and you still had the people on the radio trying to be helpful.
Yes.
So, 3 days, but I got the engine working. I was really
fantastic. That would have been when I could just imagine when that fires up the excitement. I think that's marvelous. And you talked about there. You mentioned the Transpac from San Francisco to Hawaii. Have I got that right? It is, yeah. And
West Island.
Yeah, so that's when you started to gather momentum for longer passages on your own and get used to that.
Yeah, that was a really good introduction. I actually spent half the passage upside down reinstalling my autopilot, because that went down. I had to rewire that and that caused a major problem. And quite a bit of the rest of the time, I suddenly realised that maybe I should be flying my striking non-white sail that I wasn't used to sailing. I kind of nearly went parasailing with getting the sock off and getting my cruising chute going, my race electric. So that was another good learning experience. Yeah, it's very good for me, that trip. Very good. Gave me a lot of confidence.
Yeah, great practice. And when you're upside down fixing your autopilot at sea, do you get seasick?
No, I'm lucky I don't get seasick. I can remember when I started, I can remember almost 5 occasions when I did, 1 or 2 in particular. And I'm thinking one of the times I was feeling, I don't think I actually nearly started vomiting, but I didn't quite. It was actually overnight from Cowes over to Cherbourg when we took a boat with, the 2 of us with my husband. Having just got our day skipper, we were now able to charter a boat in England. So we went over down to Cherbourg and we were overnight. And I hadn't stuck myself in or done anything. I thought we were fine. And the boat got a bit tippy with the swell. And suddenly, God, I got thrown over to the lifeline on the far side, on the starboard side, and grabbed hold of it. I thought, I'm not going over. I should have stepped in.
Wow.
But, I know I felt queasy then because I think I was getting worried.
Yeah.
And that was another time we came back. I think when we delivered it back from Sweden, the boat, because we did that very convoluted, very lovely delivery trip. We came back towards Portsmouth, and as we were coming up the channel, it gets pretty choppy with a wind over wave, with the tide turning, and quite often a westerly wind. And the wind had got up, the chop was getting up, we were coming towards Portsmouth, and it was really getting quite nasty. And my husband at that time, unfortunately, was dead keen, oh no, we don't leave down, the boat's meant to be heeling. And I'm thinking, no, I think boats are designed to stand upright, not to be heeling over. But it got so bad, neither of us were happy to go forward to reef down. Yeah. So we were really suffering. And I went down below thinking, well, if I navigate and I'll just stay down and take my mind off this. That was bad. That was a wrong thing to do because I was worried. I was down below. I wasn't out in the fresh air. I wasn't looking at the horizon. And I really did feel so queasy. So, but apart from those times, a few times when I got really worried about something wasn't in my control, and I think that's an important thing as well.
Yeah.
I don't get seasick. I haven't been seasick.
Oh, that's good. That's great. And I'm very lucky. Very lucky. Yes. I think you're right. For me, with big voyages, I could feel slightly seasick the night before, and that was definitely to do with, I wouldn't say I was worried, but you're a little bit anxious. Have I thought of everything? Is everything ready? And I found that as time went on, it lessened because of that. I was more used to it. And then when you get to know your boat inside out, I think that helps with seasickness as well. Having the right training and knowledge that you got a good chance that everything's going to be fine, it helps with that seasickness.
I think it's really, really important to have confidence in your boat. If you can't trust your boat to look after you, you may as well not go on a long passage because anything, when the wind gets up, you're going to start getting so worried. I mean, I've come across so many women that have said to me, asked me questions about, should they be, they're usually with their husband on the boat or partner. And I'm saying to them, well, can you take charge of the boat if your husband has a heart attack or God forbid, whatever? And, and so often they've just been galley slaves, basically. And they've been getting so worried about the conditions. I'm saying, well, yeah, of course, because you haven't got to understand your boat to realise that your boat will be fine because you've not been in control and controlled the boat in all these conditions to realise, well, yeah, I just have to do A, B, C, and the boat will be fine. And that, therefore, allays your fears because you know that as long as you don't do something stupid, and even if you do, the boat will probably still stay upright. Yep. Might get into a bit of a mess, but you just put it right. So, being able to do the sailing thing equally with your partner is so important. And having faith in your boat, before you left dock that you prepared that boat and she's ready for whatever journey you're doing. And you've planned it and you've got a backup.
Yeah.
They're all so important. And then, but having said that, so many cruising friends tell me that they always, however good, however long-term cruises they are, they the first day or two, they know they're going to get seasick, but then it'll settle down and they'll be fine. because they want to do the cruising and go for a longer journey. And that's why, of course, it's not a good idea to go on a passage of just 1 or 2 days all the time, because you never get over the seasickness if you encounter it. Enjoy it.
Yeah, I can understand that. It took Noel and I always a few days to settle into our rhythm when we set off. I totally agree with everything you say there. It's a big passion of mine to help educate people and give them that confidence to enjoy it more. And you did a marvellous thing by taking on these longer voyages and getting ready, and that led you on to going for world records. I can understand why, but I want you to tell me why. Why did you think this is what I've got to do?
Well, my first circumnavigation, of course, in 07 was 0708 was from Mexico back to Mexico. But it was a cruising style, stopping everywhere, enjoying where I was, coming into Cairns in 07, going up and around inside the reef up to Darwin, on to South Africa and so on. Having a really great time meeting up with people, but of course losing my boat at the end and getting a new one subsequently. Well, the new one is being fitted out, as I've already said, in Sweden. And the plan was, in fact, that to avoid tax problems, because I didn't want to tax the boat, it was way too expensive. The boat was already getting very expensive. So to avoid tax problems, I had the boat delivered down to England, and then I would take off within 2 months. We allowed a 2-month window to prepare a new boat and then get the hell out of the EC. So that's what I did. I went to Guernsey, which is duty-free outside the EU area, and that's why she's Guernsey registered, actually. Anyway, so there I was getting all these things done on the boat and looking, of course, at that time. Where are we now? 09. Yeah, 08 would have been a Vendée Globe. So 08 into 09. So January, February, the Vendée Globe races were going around. Sam Davies and Dee Kafari were in that race. And there they are, also going around the world in a race, but solo, non-stop, unassisted. And I kind of just thought, well, I've been around the world once in my boat, and I've done a circumnavigation, bar 60 miles. I wonder what it would be like to do it non-stop and go around Cape Horn. This would be quite a challenge. This would be quite something to do. And so that was really all that was in my mind, was actually to try to go around non-stop and just for the hell of it, just see how it is, see what it's like, see whether I could manage it. So that was what got me going. It was no record in my mind's eye, just the challenge of seeing whether or not I could emulate them and get around in my boat without stopping anywhere. So that's what got me going.
But I really want to delve into that a bit, but if we're able to rewind a little bit, so you lost your boat on a beach, which sounds to me terrifying. Are you able to tell us what happened?
Well, the entire story is twice over on my website. If anyone wants to go to my website and read under the articles and interviews. So I lost it in, 08? In fact, it was June the 19th of 2008. I know the date precisely that I lost my boat. I was basically finishing my circumnavigation. It was a fabulous tropical night. I had left Acapulco to return to Zihuatanejo in Mexico, where I'd started 15 months earlier. And from Acapulco up to Zihuatanejo, you've got a long line of sandy surf beaches. Quite a big surf area, but deserted mostly, just a little bit of fishing village. So I left Acapulco at night. I left at sunset, in fact, because it was a 100-mile journey. It was clearly an overnight circuit. I leave near sunset. I'll get there before sunset the next day, guaranteed. And so therefore I'd make a day for landing to finish off my circumnavigation. So that was what I did. I left, and it was such a beautiful tropical night. Unfortunately, there wasn't any wind. So although I had the main up in hope, as one does, I was actually motor sailing, so-called. I am motoring, but sail up. Running 5 miles off at about 5 knots, thinking I was fine under autopilot. And by 2 o'clock in the morning, I thought, well, I don't know, maybe not getting any sleep overnight is not a good idea. I want to go down and get some naps. So I set my alarm for 45 minutes, went down below. Next thing I know, it's such a warm night, I had the hatch open. I'm getting woken up with waves breaking over me. We were on a surf beach. We were getting taken by the surf and pushed onto the beach. And I obviously closed the hatch in a hurry, ran up on top, grabbed the wheel. I can still visualize the wheel did nothing because the motor was running. I thought, well, I can just get off the beach and motor away. Couldn't do anything. We were well aground already. The rudder and the motor wasn't taking me anywhere. So next thing I decided to do was, okay, we'll set my EPIRB off, which was never heard by Falmouth Coast Guard in the UK, interestingly. And dark night before dawn, no one around, not even any lights, just being pushed by the flip-flop with the boat being pushed up the beach. As the boat flipped down towards the ocean with the water leaving the beach in a hurry, I'd get water getting into the cockpit and down below in a hurry. And then when we flopped the other way, she'd go bang on the wet sand. So I thought, I've got to try and how do I stop the flip-flopping motion? Because I was worried the boat was going to crack up. I assumed I'd get pulled off, To stop that, the only thing I could think of, well, I've somehow got to get a line up the beach somehow. And we got pushed up quite a way by then. So I started, the only thing I could think of was to use the anchor chain and get that up the beach somehow. So I got the anchor down. I released all the chain, started releasing a load of it. Because the next thing I've got to do is actually get off my safe boat onto the beach with the seas washing in and out. But we were gradually getting pushed further and further up the beach. I think it was a spring tide, a high spring, what we call here the king tide, which is a new term to me when I got to Australia. Never used the term king tide before. Anyway, so it was a spring high tide, and so we were pushed quite a way up by then. So I eventually got down. I nearly got washed away. I've still got a scar on my leg I'm looking at now where I actually got caught by barnacles on the hull. I nearly got washed away because fortunately the chain was dangling from my bow, right? And as I got washed past the boat, I put my arm out and cut the chain in the hook of my arm and saved me getting washed out to sea because there was no one around. That would have been it. Finished.
That was a bit close.
I've had several close shaves. I could write another book about a cat has 9 lives. I think I've got 11 or 12 or 13.
That's extraordinary. I just can't imagine.
Fishermen came by, helped me get the anchor up the beach, with the chain, and so we stopped the boat flopping around. But no, it's a long story, very convoluted, but it's all written up on my website.
Okay, you can get more details there. But how do you deal with that in your mind? You've prepared, you've done a lot of miles, you've got your boat ready, and now it's sort of starting again. How do you do that mentally?
I just had to crush the emotion because this is my soulmate. She looked after me so well. I put such a lot into her. We'd done so much together, and here she was. I'm trying to get everything off her. I mean, the Mexicans were great. They would help, most of them, not all, most of them were really helpful in trying to help me get stuff off my boat, salvage it. And a year later, I was sent to TV. The TV people local came by because I was a big story of the day and tried to talk to me and showed pictures of my boat. A year later, one of the Mexicans sent me a picture the TV that he'd snapped off the TV screen. They went back to the beach where my boat had come down. But of course, being a surf beach, it was fairly wet. And even while I was there, over 10 days getting stuff off the boat, trying to retrieve stuff, she was sinking.
Yeah.
A year later, that much of her mast top was showing. She'd gone right down under the wet sand. She was gone into out of sight.
Wow.
Quite amazing. So very sad. I mean, for me to be inside the boat, she leaned over. She gained a hole in her side, and I thought someone had actually made to make sure she didn't go. Inside, she was filling up with water and sand. I had to retrieve I suddenly realised that flip-flops and a T-shirt and a shorts were not the thing to be living in forevermore. I'd better retrieve some clothing. So I went to my aft cabin to retrieve my clothing. It was under wet sand. Wow. I had to dig into the sand to get my clothes out, but they were helping me on the beach to take it up. No, very, very sad. And a lot of stuff that I lost, personal stuff. My notebook I lost, of course, for my time in that. But I say, in order to survive it, I just had to crush the emotion and just get on with the job. We've got to get our authorities here try and save yourself and save what you can off the boat.
Yeah, well done.
Nice. Now on Rider 2, I have a lot of the things that I saved off the Rider 1.
Good.
So the Rider 2 feels a bit like a big sister to the Rider 1.
Nice.
It's kind of a family connection.
Yeah, good. And so you've had this experience, you've had a lot of sadness, and you've managed to push forward. And now you have a new boat that's new and improved because you've learned a lot from your last one. And now you're facing attempts at around the world. You've had your cruise where you've stopped at a lot of wonderful places, and that's been great to set you up. Now you're attempting unassisted, no support team, no shore-based support team, and non-stop. So I can imagine some of the hard work. I haven't done it, so I can't imagine it all, but getting the boat ready and everything you need physically as well. But what about mentally? You've got this long stretch of alone. Did you give that some thought of how you're going to cope mentally?
Well, I think at this point, the SSB radio is what comes to the fore to answer that question, because with the radio, I was in contact with people all the time. I mean, in my cruising up and down the coast between Mexico and Canada, which I'd done for several years before I took off finally on that non-stop attempt, I'd made a lot of friends in Canada, California, the US, and I got into a lot of cruises nets and a lot of ham radio nets. So as I was leaving and coming down the North America coast, oh my God, I could have been on about 4 or 5 nets in the morning, talking to people that I had already made friends with over the radio, or on the cruiser nets, friends that I knew from Mexico or California with their boats. So I had that support, if you like. And I knew already that, starting off, getting the boat ready, I have to say that I was kind of adopted, as you might say, by the Royal Victoria Yacht Club up in Victoria, up in BC. Yes. And they were amazingly supportive and helpful and friendly, lovely friendly club, actually. They helped me a lot, with getting ready, their members. So gave me free moorage, they gave me free storage. I've still got stuff up there. They were amazing. So that was a great help. So thinking, obviously I had to plan my route and read up a little bit about what that involved. But in the main, I just felt, well, okay. I mean, I've often said to people when they're getting worried about making a long passage, if you've made a 2 or 3 day passage, you're ready for a longer one. Because once you've gone 3 days, you're into sailing ocean mode. Yeah. You can stay as long as you like out at sea now, because basically you're into the mindset and that you're into running the boat. So if you've done 3 days, well, why not do 10 days? Yeah. Why not go up to the Marquesas, do a 3 week? It's no different. You're just extending your voyage. So for me, the non-stop element was a matter of I've got to make sure, obviously, that the boat is as well maintained as I can make her. I've got to have a load of tools and spares ready for any emergency, because things are definitely going to break. I had no idea what would break, but I knew that they would. Something was going to break, probably at regular intervals, so you've got to be ready for that. And then the water, I had a desalinator. So long as I had prepared my boat, and I was ready for rough weather. I had, my reefing is 1/4, half, and 3/4 of the sail area on my reef, so they're pretty deep reefs. Yeah. So in fact, when I ran my 3rd reef, for instance, it was effectively a trysail. Yeah. I had already learned from the first boat. I'd got a staysail on the first boat. It was a hanked-on one using a removable in a forestay. And I discovered quite soon that when you came to the point when you really needed that staysail in strong conditions, you became a bit dubious about and worried about going forward in strong conditions to set it. Yeah. So in the new boat, I had a furling staysail put in place, but I could furl that down to a storm jib size. Yeah. So that made things really easy. If you're in really stormy conditions, I could now reduce my main to 3rd reef, deep 3rd reef, effectively a trysail. I could reduce my staysail to effectively a storm jib in those positions. So, and I very definitely, when my boat was in build, I refused to have a furling main because I've seen people struggling in Hamble Point. One of my memories, vivid memories, looking over guys, 3 guys on a harbour grassy with a furling main, cursing like mad because it got creased in the main and they were having problems getting it furled in or furled out. And I thought, no way do I want that problem. So when I heard the boat fitted out, I said, no, I want slab reefing. I want to have the culling up the neck, the gooseneck hook still there. And I want to be able to jam off, I want the jammers at the end of the lines, ready for jamming off them at the mast. And I want to do it. So though I had the lines laid back, in a fallback position mode, I could go back. I still had the winches on the mast. I wanted to be able to go back to mast reefing if everything else had failed, going back along the boom. So again, fallback. What's the fallback? Yeah. What's your backup of the fallback position?
That's exactly it. It's about looking at all your systems and, okay, that's working now. What if it doesn't? What am I going to do?
Yeah, I'd go down to the boys down there, the guys working on the boat, and say, okay, when we turn upside down, is that going to work? Yeah. Not if. When we turn. I mean, by now they knew what I was planning, right? They knew that I'd had experience of my other boat. So that was like, if things, and this is how people should, whatever, if you're not on a coastal passage maybe, but even then things can get nasty. But if you're going on any longer journey, when your boat turns upside down, what's going to happen? Just look at it. Okay, I had to put locks in all my openings in the cabin sole. But opening, they just lifted. Yeah. My fish top lifted. I had to lock them down, ready for bad conditions. If I had locked my fish top and my dry locker, all those cans in the dry locker, my God, they would have been lethal missiles.
Yeah, absolutely.
I had to lock everything down that I could, find a way to do it because it didn't come like that originally.
Yeah, we did the same on our boats. Thought about, we had to put locks on, on your floor, all those boards you just lift up, well, they're going to be lethal if you're upside down. And really interesting your comments about the HF, the long range radio. I'm a huge fan of that. For me, that was really important on board. And like yourself, we did lots of skeds. And that was important to me. And in one of your blogs, you talked about when your computers broke, your satellite phone broke, but you did have the HF radio and you used Weatherfax, much the same we did. When you set out, if you're going to set out again or nowadays, do you still have your HF radio?
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. I mean, one of the things I've got to do, though, is replace the line down from my backstay to my tuner. Because that clearly was the reason why at the end of my last circumnavigation my radio failed. I knew what the problem was. I tried to replace it, but as I took away that line to replace it, which I did, I could see that what I was connecting it to was corroded. And so not surprising, my mend that time, my repair didn't work. Unfortunately, when I had my boat re-rigged ready for that non-stop circumnavigation, the rigger, and I learned too late to do anything about it, he put, because what the radios do, they emit radiation and you don't want to get too close. So what did he do with that connection? He put it up high. Well, I'm only small. I couldn't then reach up easily to do anything with that connection. The only reason when I was coming back a few days away from finishing to get to it was when I was in a flat calm. And I had a crate that I could put upside down on the aft deck to get just about reach high enough to get to that place. Well, you couldn't do that other than in a flat calm.
No.
So really that connection needed to be lower down.
Yeah.
With a view to reaching it. No one's going to be there while I'm talking. I'm going down below.
Yes. That's right.
Thank you.